of a Fortune 50 company where he was the general manager responsible for opening plants in Europe and in Asia, and had profit and loss responsibility for $100 million divisions. In short, Bob had hindsight and expertise to fill in where Wayne did not have experience. Now, Wayne would look the caliber of the individual that Bob was, but as a $7 million company, he would never even dream of trying to reach that, much less the affordability issue. But Wayne was sure glad to talk with Wayne. Bob was sure glad to talk with Wayne when he was approached. Together, Bob and Wayne were able to accomplish $25 million in just 1 year. That was originally a 5-year goal, and together they were able to do it in just 1 year. And based on that, Wayne was actually able to attract another $10 million to execute his entire growth strategy. But let's go back to your mosaic and your passion and the currency that you are tapping. As you continue to build your mosaic, built on pieces that share your passion, you are building on the divide and conquer concept. The result is something very powerful. No single financing source is responsible for your success, and you are hostage to none. So now that you have your full $3 million covered by mosaic, your financial picture looks pretty complete, doesn't it? Wrong. It would be complete if only revenue would come in exactly as you planned. The trouble is that's not a very good assumption. You see, so far we've only financed the known expenses associated with growth. What about the unknown? Let me explain. Whenever you introduce a new product or expand into a new market, expenses precede revenue. The result is a gap, a timing gap. The biggest challenge with a gap is how to finance it. It's an unknown. Now, there are a lot of ways of financing the known expenses. The mosaic is perfect, only limited by creativity. But there's only one way to finance the unknown, and that's with equity. That's why I say that financing growth is really a two-step process. First finance the known, and then finance the unknown. But did you ever notice how few companies actually take advantage of that second step to finance their safety net with equity? I can hear you yelling at me through your brains. It's not just a mosaic piece. It's not just cash. That's control. Well, let me tell you how to get equity that wants you in control for your safety net. That's the third and final step of the cash and control process, the front door. Equity can be your cheapest safety net when your future is worth more than your past. So the third step of the cash and control process is igniting investors' passion so that you can get credit for your future today. Now, wouldn't you be more confident to be able to pursue your biggest entrepreneurial vision if you knew you could get credit for it today? That would be equity that shares your passion and wants you in control. Well, I was talking to another one of my clients, Scott, and here's what he said. A safety net sounds like a great idea, Stefania, but I don't want any investor meddling in my company. Let me tell you a little bit about Scott. Scott was a 38-year-old CEO of an electronics components company in Silicon Valley. He was more than a decade younger than his founding partner, who wasn't so active in the company in the last couple of years. Scott had just introduced an entire new suite of products, and he didn't have too much cash left over for commercialization, much less the timing gap. Growth was putting Scott's company at risk. Scott knew a lot about where he was coming from, but he was in uncharted waters with this new product and this new market opportunity. Growth was also exposing a difference in risk appetites between the two partners. Scott's older partner wanted to grow just enough to keep his lifestyle going. Scott wanted something much different. But they both agreed they had gone into business together and they wanted to keep control. So Scott decided to find just enough money to grow his business to $15 million in 5 years. Scott believed the more equity you raise, the more ownership control you give up. Like a lot of really smart entrepreneurs, Scott believed $3 million of equity costs more ownership and give up than $1 million. But it's not true. If you can get credit for your future today. Now, in order to get credit for your future today, you have to use the power of negotiated value. Now, that's a concept that we've already applied in the Mosaic approach, but not to its full extent. That particular principle is this: value is not objective. If it were, you wouldn't have a willing buyer and a willing seller exchanging stock of the same company at various prices all day long in the public marketplace. No. Value is a matter of perception. And perception is so powerful, it's been known to change objective fact. Have you ever noticed a car accident at an intersection? Passerbys are offering all the accurate information, and the cop taking down the information is overwhelmed with conflicting data. So it is with investors. Lots of different investors look at exactly the same entrepreneurial project, and they see entirely different facts. That's why I say, negotiated value is your secret weapon. Let me give you an example. Let's say that you're earning $1 million today, but you could be earning $5 million in short order. Let's do some math together. What's your company worth to an investor who sees your $1 million today and is willing to give you credit using a price-earnings ratio of 12 for that $1 million today? 12 million? Now, how much is your company worth to an investor who catches your passion and wants to give you credit for that $5 million today based on the same 12 PE ratio? 60. The difference between $60 million and $12 million is simply where an investor looks for value. Now, let's say it's going to take some money to get from $1 million to $5 million. Let's say it's going to take $1.2 million. How much will that $1.2 million cost you? Well, it depends. From an investor who sees your company as a $12 million company, that $1.2 million is 10% based on your past. In contrast, from an investor who values your company at $60 million, that same $1.2 million will cost 2%. Movement between those two extremes, 2% and 10%, is your job. It's your job to have an investor see a $60 million company, not a $12 million company. And that's exactly what we do in the front door. Because you see, value creation is simply a process of making your future tangible enough for investors to be able to buy. Now, I have a caveat for you. Not all investors can see your future. It takes an investor who shares your passion. You see, not all investors are the same. Let me give you an analogy. From a woman's perspective, not all men are the same. I was 35 years old. I was single until I was 35 years old. I met a lot of men, but none of them had that special spark. Until I met my to-be husband, Jim. Jim and I met in an unusual place. We met on the water. That's very important, because Jim and I both love sailing. Now you see, Jim is an engineer, and I was an investment banker on Wall Street at the time. Under normal circumstances, Jim and I would have probably never met. And frankly, even if we had, the likelihood of us having a good connection would have been very small. To be perfectly honest, Jim's the kind of guy I used to eat for lunch as an investment banker. Fortunately, we met on the water. And I was drawn to Jim's passion for sailing, something that I could really understand.